Okay, hello and welcome to the show. And before we begin, let's have some intros.
My name is Emily Harrison, founder and director of the Akashic Academy and mentor to other lightworkers in the realm of the Akashic Records. I gotta give a shout out today to Sifu Boggy, my personal Sifu. I want to invite you to open your mind to the way, the conscious way, the way of conscious mindfulness. Peace.
Guys, Billy Carson here, also known as Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4. I wanted to give a special shout out here to Sifu Boogie, and that's Sifu, which means master, okay? Open your mind to the way, the conscious way, the way of conscious mindfulness, and follow the way of conscious mindfulness on Facebook, ASAP, okay? Much love from Forbidden Knowledge. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the show, a slightly rearranged version, but welcome to the show. I'm just actually going to quickly try something. Give me no, didn't do. Anyway, so while I'm quickly trying to try something, I've just sent the Zoom link so we could possibly have people turn up webinar, but we are recording it as well, so you may be watching it in the future anyway. Hello, future.
Hello, future people that watch this.
Hello, future, indeed. I'm just seeing if this is the right one, because if it is, I should suddenly pop up on the screen twice, and then it'll be awfully confusing. Yes, there I am. Why have one buggy when you can have two? Okay, so let's leave webinar. Yes, it is working. Okay, so that link is working, and now there's going to be 3 of us. Okay, so Brittnee, how are you? How are you doing?
I am doing so good. I'm very, very good. How are you doing?
Not too bad. It's retrograde seems to be in full swing, especially for me. Yes. Apparently, we did try to go onto YouTube, and my password isn't working on YouTube. So then I tried to do it on Instagram. Not Instagram. On Facebook. And apparently I could see it on my profile, but nobody could see me. So apparently I'm shadow banned, which is one of the reasons why I'm going to another platform.
I am moving away from Facebook. I am going to be having my website that I'm going to launch on the physical internet, and then I have a couple independent apps that I'm going to use. And other than that, I am just going to focus on, I want to do podcasts and start uploading them to, my page where I can't be censored no more, and that's my goal. I'm going to start doing it that way, and writing books. That's another way that I can share this information without being censored,
Yep. Well,
So,
well. Another place will be Vibio, and we'll talk a
yeah,
little bit like that near the end. But
Well,
that because that is their biggest, one of their biggest things is freedom of speech, and they're set up in a certain way. So
that is one of
to
the apps that I will be using. So,
exactly. Anyway, so what have you got on the show for us today? Oh,
so
fair lady.
the
As I
last
pull it.
show I had said that we were going to cover the CIA documents that had been released, and after extensively reading those documents and just seeing them, they're too vague for me, and I really feel like there's an ulterior motive for them. So today I decided to discuss the Titanic conspiracy theory, is what they call it, which is that there was actually the Titan and then there was actually the Titanic, and that now see, this is where it gets really great. Like, I love this because it goes so many places. Like, oh, I love it. So they're said that the Titan was actually swapped out for the Titanic, and that the Titan is what really went down, and the other ship, the Titanic, that was labeled the Titan that supposedly survived, it actually went on for 25 years in service without any issues. No going down, no sinking. The Titan, however, had run abroad on shores and had punctured a hole in the hull, and it was so big that they had to repair it. They didn't use the metal they used was definitely different. It was a weaker type of metal. You know, and it even goes down to the detail of like the propellers matching up the serial numbers on the propellers. You know, and the theory is that the Titanic, the Titan was really the one that was sunk, and it was done so that way the Federal Reserve could be set up. And unfortunately, many of the people on there literally thought they were going on a voyage. But the bigger plan was for the jet suits, as they're called, to take out some very, very, very important rich men that were fighting the Federal Reserve and were opposed to it. And these were people, some of the people were friends with Nikola Tesla. Sorry, I said that wrong. So here are some facts, and just kind of go into the detail, a bit more in depth. So there is a fact that in 1898, a man named Morgan Robertson penned a book titled Wreck of the Titan, which is about a luxury liner deemed unsinkable that was going too fast in the North Atlantic, and it hit an iceberg, killing almost everyone on board due to the lack of lifeboats. Another fact is 14 years later, this fictional book would play out in real life exactly down to the name with the wreck of the Titanic. But this time it would have major political implications. Some of the wealthiest men in the world were on this ship, and some were opposed to the Federal Reserve and the central bank system.
Nearly all of the ones who opposed the federal bank system were on the Titanic.
Yep.
And they were invited. This is maybe it's a good job we're recording this, because they were invited by Rockefeller. Rockefeller was invited them, and he was meant to originally come to London and get on there with them to go to New York, and then at the last minute he cancelled.
Yep.
He cancelled, but he invited, and I think he even paid for them, or he definitely paid for the top things for them, and they were all meant to be going to back to America. But and as far as I was aware, it was nearly all of them. I think there was two that refused to go, had already refused. Everybody else went, but Rockefeller was supposed to be on. Sorry, you carry on.
No, you're right. The Rockefeller was supposed to be on. He was one of the ones that canceled. And the other people that canceled were J.P. Morgan, Milton, Hershey. Those were the two that canceled at the last minute, and they were the ones to go on who would build the Hershey Empire. How convenient. And another fact is J.P. Morgan funded and built the Titanic, and he also took out a large sum of money. Like, people and the victims of the Titanic, he got paid money for it, but at the same time they took some type of a hit where he didn't get as much. Like, they still made money even after the Titanic, So another fact is there were no red flares on board to signal to any boats for rescue. The white flares are typically only used to signal that there's a party going on and that everything is okay. So now there might be people who argue, oh, well, they had red flares, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, for that, we're going to go to the Titanic movie. So the person who wrote the Titanic movie even said that he went detail for detail of what happened to that night. He went down to the extent of making sure that the decorative artwork going around was like detailed to an extreme. And you know, so he made that come to life, and he depicted in the movie that the flares were white. In the Titanic movie, the flares are white. And he said that the only detail he had gotten wrong was how the ship broke and how it bobbed. He said the way that it fell was not possible, and he didn't find out until years later after the Titanic was made. He finally was able to figure out that he had gotten it wrong, but it took much more digitally edited software for him to be able to achieve that than what they had in that time period.
It was James Cameron. James Cameron was
yes, James Cameron. I was going to say his name. Thank you. I was going to say it. I'm like, but you know, the fact that there were no red flares on board and stuff like that, that's just showing that, you know, there's something fishy there, you know, something's not right. There was also the fact that it was the first ship of its kind with the ability to seal electromagnetically, which could seal people below deck. So again, why is it that this has electromagnetically sealed doors? That means these doors, that's probably where all the coal workers were, all the lower class people were, you know, and those are the ones that are getting shut in, because I think what it's meant to do is to keep the water out, right? With them I think electromagnetically closing, it's supposed to seal it and make it airtight. But in the process, they probably didn't put any safeguards up. Wonder why. Another fact, Captain Edward was one of the most decorated captains of his time, and it would have been totally out of character for him to avoid precautions. And that statement right there, when it comes in about that, they're talking about he was pushing the Titanic faster than she should have been going that night, and he was doing it openly in an area that he had gone through many times during his time as a maritime person on the oceans and stuff. He had gone through this area. He knew there was icebergs. He knew the dangers. So why was it he was going so fast that night and he did not, you know, take into the account of where he was and slow it down? You know, they said that there was only one set of binoculars that night, or no, there was no binoculars that night either for the upper crow. And you have other people that are saying that the deckhands were like, why aren't we slowing? You know, they're saying there was ample amount for them to be able to, you know, see that iceberg. You know, they would have been able to see it had you been paying attention. And the theory in this is that the captain was actually paid by J.P. Morgan, as well as a couple others, and he was paid to actually let the Titanic sink. And what was originally supposed to happen is there wasn't supposed to be as many victims. What was supposed to happen is there was a boat, and I forget the name. I think it was the California. It was supposed to be about an hour or so away, not very far from where the Titanic was. It was supposed to sit there until the flares went up, because they were going to come in and they were supposed to save the people on the Titanic. The main goal was to sink the Titanic.
Or at least that's what the captain was told.
Yes, that was the thing that they were doing. However, their plan was messed up because the Carcinthia came through first. And they said that the white flares being signaled, that boat that was waiting, the sinking actually happened an hour ahead of time. So that boat didn't even, like, it was sitting there for a full hour and the wreck had already happened. It had happened an hour ahead of time. So that boat was never able to come in like it was supposed to and save the people. And so there was more countless victims. And then the Carcinthia is the one who came in, and they ended up seeing that it was in distress. So, you know, the captain, I do feel, was very, very much involved in this. I do feel that. And, you know, and I've looked at the pictures of the captain. I've looked at the pictures of the men who, you know, created this boat, You know, I've also looked at the men who died, and the men who died, when you look in their eyes, you can tell they were good, genuine people. They were good men who actually had honor and stood up for what they believed in. They stood in their truth. And that was threatening to other people because they were some of the wealthiest men out there in the world. They were the wealthiest in the world at that time. So, you know, they had that, they could have shut the Federal Reserve plans down. And that's where this all of it got hatched, you know, and this is where it all came into, you know. There's also the fact too that they people say the captain just wasn't acting right. He just wasn't, he didn't seem right that night. He seemed really on edge. Like before the accident happened, they said that he felt really like, he seemed like he was on edge. He wasn't really socializing. He was kind of just away. And even some of his crew members reported that he kind of had this attitude, or just, I don't know, it was different energy from him, you know. So I do, you know, when I looked at his picture and stuff, I saw a darkness in there. I got that uncomfortable feeling of like, he did some shadiness, you know, there's some bad within him. But it was also because he became a jet suit. He was working for the jet suits, and the jet suits were like the Rockefellers, and that was what they were considered. And they also, the author of the book, who originally wrote the book about the Titanic, or the Titan sinking, he was poisoned a couple years later after the Titanic sank. And honestly, I think that the jet suits took the idea from that book and they implemented that idea into the real world. So they took that idea in the book, created all of this, and then did it for the Federal Reserve to get it set up and everything. Because after the Titanic sunk, just 1 year later, the Federal Reserve was formed. And that was just 1 year after the Titanic sunk. And then you also had the Astor family who was on the boat. They were one of the richest families in the world. And John Alice Astor III opposed the Federal Reserve 100%. He completely opposed it. And John Jacob Astor VI was the richest man in the world at that time. And he was also a friend to Nikola Tesla and had an outspoken opponent of the creation of the Federal Reserve. Astor gained his wealth in part as real estate builders, a real estate builder, investor, and inventor. And there were other prominent Federal Reserve detractions who didn't like him. Benjamin Guggenheim was one of them, and so was Isa Strauss, and they also died on board as well. So these men were very powerful. They had a lot of influence in the world, and of course, why not have them on a ship that's going to go down? You know, like why? Doesn't make sense, does it? You know, so you have those facts, you know, just right there, you know, that kind of give you that idea of, you know, what really happened. And I've always felt the Titanic was something wrong. There was something off with it. I just never felt it was genuine. And then when I ended up getting like a download a while back, in a past life, I was on the Titanic. My past life, they made me see that I was a little girl, though I was a little kid, and I was actually of the poorer class, and I ended up not making it out. I was one of them stuck below the deck. And I've always had this connection to the Titanic that I never understood. I'm like, why do I have this fear of oceans? Why do I have this fear of dark waters? Why do I have this fear of this boat? Like this boat, I was connected to it. I felt like when they made the movie and they showed the inside of it, I almost felt like I was watching deja vu. It was like I had seen this place before, you know, and at that time I didn't know, but later it had been downloaded to me that I had a past life on the Titanic. And it makes sense kind of, I think, why I'm covering this subject right now today, because I do feel that this is not a theory. And I feel like the reason that this is labeled a conspiracy theory is because the CIA invented that theory or that word so that way people were discredited. And I hate to break it to you, but the Titanic and everything was very much, it was definitely it was definitely planned, you know. And you know, pretty much the reason and the importance of the Federal Reserve at this time, you know, the Federal Reserve was ushered into being by a group of Illuminati banksters. Now, this is where the Illuminati come into play, and where that theory that you've heard, the Illuminati coming in, the New World Order. This, now tell me, how the hell does that tie, pardon my French, how does that tie into, tell me, a sinking that happened? And how does that tie into it? You can't tell me, like, that's where these two theories come together, because you've got two different theories, one about the Titanic, and then
it's that whole thing of you know, you know, oh, you know, you just see the Titanic, it's a great tragedy. When you look on who was aboard and you look on who wasn't aboard, who was supposed to be on aboard, suddenly things look a bit odd, you know, like one of the people, or you know, one person cancelling is one thing. Three multi-millionaires, you know, or you know, very super millionaires at least at the time.
Yeah, they were huge. So
and you know, this was the luxury yacht that, you know, this was, you know, the best yacht in the best like ship in the world, and it was meant to be this, you know, they were all meant to be going on, and that's one thing. But then to go, those three people were for the Federal Reserve. Everybody except for, I think it was only one or two people. There was about 7 major people who were against the Federal Reserve, which could make an impact, or you know, against the voting for it. 5 of them were on the Titanic, or whatever it was, but 5 of them were on the Titanic itself. So when they died, the major vote that would have rejected the Federal Reserve no longer happened. Nowadays, that would be highly freaking suspicious. You know,
exactly. And back then, they're not looking into that. Back then, you know, they didn't have all that technology. They couldn't connect the pieces as easily. I mean, they could, they just didn't want to. You know, came down to that.
Well, the whole point of the Federal Reserve, that was a secret ballot. It was a secret. Only the top players knew about it, and they were voting for or against. So the fact that 5 died, you know, that was the 5 major ones. There were 7 in total. The 7 in total that were going to vote against it, they would have toppled the vote. It was there were 7 major players that were saying no. We need to think about this more. You know, to put it in the hands of the banks, and you know, making the money totally independent. Because the whole thing is that there was there'd been lots of stuff going on pushing for this for about 10 years. That you know that people, you know, the governments have had bribes and counter bribes, and there was different issues going on, and the inflation was fluctuating, and that's why they were pushing for it to begin with. The banks were saying, "Oh, we're good at money. Let us do it. Let us take over. Let us create, you know, a more stronger dollar." And that was the whole point, is what they were doing. That's what they're creating. And so again, when you look at that, and you know, and this is not the first time. The problem is, it's not the first time when if you believe that the press always tells you the truth, you will believe that the government always tells you the truth. If you believe that, you know, that conspiracies are just conspiracies, and you don't actually look at evidence, then you're always going to be in shock when other stuff comes on. You're always going to be disbelieving. No, it can't be. It can't. You know, this can't be true. That can't be fact. And that's the thing. You know, it's but what if it is? What if?
Exactly.
But you know, because there's just certain things, and like you say, James Cameron made a big thing of doing it exactly, and so why wasn't there? Well, why wasn't there any red flags? It was JP Morgan who built the thing. Flares you know, I'm trying. I don't know. Back then, maybe say $40. Or probably that is like the max. $40 per flare. Binoculars. $20 a pair of binoculars. Why wasn't there? Why were there abundance of binoculars? Why weren't there enough flares? You know, those things alone.
Yes.
You know, and like you say, an experienced sea captain,
and crew with that, and crew with that, you know,
and the crew. But the crew was told to, is to, if you're pushing a ship to its maximum speed in an area known for icebergs, you would have all the crew out on the watch looking.
Yes, and there were people reporting that when the iceberg hit, that there was nobody up there on the spot where they were supposed to be looking out. There was nobody up there. And that was actually reported by a few of the survivors that survived, and there was the survivors that kind of gave them details of what the crew did that night and how the captain's behavior was and so on and so forth. And if they would not have had even those people as witnesses, then, we wouldn't even know about the depth of this.
And the other thing was that there was actually information to say that that JP Morgan had actually put out a broadcast or been told to indicate to any local ships not to hurry to the scene because there was no survivors. They were told there were no survivors, that the ship had gone down suddenly, taking everybody with it, and the last radio message they got that the ship was going down suddenly and everybody was going down with it, and there was no survivors.
And see, the thing that with me too, I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking, I honestly think that the plan to an extent didn't go as it was supposed to be executed, because I feel like there wasn't supposed to be any survivors at all. Like, I think originally the plan was to be no survivors. I feel like when it hit the iceberg, I feel like it was supposed to hit it in a different way that was going to take it pretty much down immediately, like completely take it down. At that point, I feel like it didn't happen. Like I feel like they didn't hit it the way that they were meant to hit it. I feel like they hit it a little off, and that's why it took so long for it to sink. I don't think there was supposed to be survivors to begin with. I really don't. I don't think they didn't plan for people to have the time to get the lifeboats launched and stuff like that. And you even have people saying that there were actual passengers of the ship that were unloading these lifeboats. Where the hell was the crew that was supposed to be unloading the lifeboats? There weren't that many that were trying to do that. It was mainly the people and a few crew members who I think weren't in on it. And I think those were like the kitchen staff and stuff like that, but I don't think there was meant to be any survivors originally. And I think it got a little hiccup happened. And I feel like something like, and this is just my theory, I feel like there was something down there that was meant to explode. It was meant to hit when an impact happened. It was meant to cause an explosion and the whole ship to explode. The ship wasn't supposed to crack and go down that way. It was supposed to explode, because they showed it originally. To me, they showed an explosion happening as soon as it hit the iceberg, and they make me feel there was something underneath that would have caused it to explode. If it hit impact. So something that can be impacted really easy that would blow. But obviously C4 and stuff I don't think was around at that time. But I do know that like sweat from TNT and stuff like that, it can spark like that, just a little bit of sweat. It can, so. But yeah, that's my theory. I really don't think there was supposed to be survivors. I think it was meant to explode.
Yeah, because the whole point was to eliminate the threat, or is that if it was, if the fact, like say, there's just really suspicious things, like the whole fact that JP Morgan and these two others were meant to be on, and last minute they cancelled. Minute they cancel. Now, if nothing happens, you wouldn't have thought twice, really. But the fact that somebody cancels at the last minute and then the plane goes down, or the train crashes, or this example, the boat hits an iceberg. And I mean, the other thing, even the difference from back then to now, radar wasn't what it, we now have radar. They would have known exactly where the icebergs were, so to hit one would have been easier. And also, if they were aiming for one, it would have been far more obvious. Back then, they could say, I think the going at full speed was that it would that way the chances of them coming across an iceberg was high, and going at full speed, they're not going to. The one thing I wonder is whether, because like you say, the evidence, or there is information sort of say that, it was definitely, especially if it was the Titan had already had that damage, then they would have hoped it would have hit that damage, ripped it open. But maybe that's why, if it was a Titan, maybe that's why it did split in two. Because
I think it was the Titan. I really do. And I think it's awfully funny that the Titan is spelled that way, and then they did the Titanic. Titan is in Titanic. It's just, you see what it just doesn't, that's what I'm saying, those things, like, why name that Titanic? And then I feel like it was the Titan, and it would make sense if they hit the iceberg that the hole went in as easily, because supposedly the Titan, after the Titanic sank, the second vehicle, the Titan, it went on for 25 years in service with no issues and never sank, and then was turned over to the military, and I'm pretty sure they turned it into a vessel for war times. Shortly after that, I do know it was used for something, but I think it was a switch. And there is also evidence to prove that theory, such as they were both in the same harbor at the same time getting repairs. What it was told is that the Titanic was actually going to be off by a week or two if they had to finish the little bit of details that they did. And they said that the Titan was in there at the same time, and the Titan was actually closer to being fixed, and that they actually took not just pieces from the Titan, but also that they took and they just made the Titan the Titanic. And that's what I'm saying. There's pieces that were supposed to be on the Titan that ended up being on the Titan or the Titanic. So I
mean, again, the ships, those two ships were huge. They were
similar. They were similar, but they weren't identical. And there's pictures showing that the Titanic, when it set sails, it has the same number of windows and levels as the Titan, as where the Titanic was supposed to have another extra level with another set of things. And it's those little details like that that bring that theory into.
But there's the other thing of two like non-boating people, still two, like you said, if one's got an extra level than the other, that would still be noticeable. But to bloody port crew and to people who work on the ports, they know the difference between one freaking boat and another, and even if you swap it, how can you say, oh, what, in the night the Titanic rose up and it went there, and the other one, they would have known. People would have known who worked on those. They'd have known which boat, especially the names, those two names being the Titanic being as famous as it was, and they would have known exactly where it was. The fact it was in if it was swapped, there was a lot of people paid off. There was a lot of people who would have been there, and of course, because of the people who work there are very poor, they get double their wages for a month, which to JP Morgan is a slight dent in his pocket, but for them that's enough to keep them quiet.
And they also had they had a timeline to keep up with, and the Titanic was going to take an extra week of the timeline, and they couldn't do that, as where the Titan was ready right away, and that's when they decided to do that. So a lot of the theory, like I said, it's the Titan. I'm telling you, I feel it is the Titan. I do feel the Titanic, or the Titan, is what went to sea that day, and like I said, it was meant to explode. And I think that's why, like I said, I feel like something didn't detonate. when it happened. I don't know what it was, but there was something supposed to be explosive. But I don't think they had bombs in that time, did they?
Well, I mean, you'd have wartime, bombs as such. But maybe it was the whole idea because yeah, the evidence of the Titan, the Titan already ran aground, and
Yeah,
there
she
was
ran aground right before when she hit a ship underwater. Yeah,
yeah.
she ran
And,
aground.
and the whole point on that alone is when you then look on the aftermath. So if that had already run aground once, how did it then carry on for another 20 years?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, and running aground wasn't the first time that it had done it. It actually had smaller accidents as well before it actually ran aground and got the major damage to the hull. So the Titan was known for having little issues along the way. So I completely believe the fact that it completely went down. It would make sense why it crumpled the way it did. It was definitely the Titan, and then there's some people, that, bring up theory of the lifeboats. Why were there only 14 lifeboats on the Titanic when this ship was huge? And it should have had, I think, didn't they say it should have had like 100 or 100 or 150 lifeboats or something?
Yeah.
Like it was that big that it could have held a number like that. And actually the Titan actually was smaller and held a smaller number of boats. And they did say that there were people that they did see passing of like boats from one ship to another and stuff too. There were reports of people, like pedestrians just watching, that had said that they had seen movements of parts between the two vessels as well. Why was there only 14 lifeboats on a boat that's supposed to have 150 and it's got 2,500 people on it? Doesn't make sense, and that's where all those theories come into play. It's exactly where all those theories come into play, and the fact that the Titanic, it was it's a steam engine, like they ran it by coal and all of that. The fire was already there, so all it would have taken was one little chemical that could have caused an explosion in that lower area. And they said the damage happened so low down, and they even said that if the crewmen would have been up there and they would have been looking the way they should have, they would have seen that iceberg looming. Like, even though it was dark, they would have seen from the horizon, because the horizon, there's that natural light that's just given. They said that they would have been able to see the silhouette of the iceberg if they were going slow like they were supposed to. If they were going the speed that they were supposed to, then they would have actually seen the iceberg. And there's people saying that them not seeing the iceberg is bullshit and ridiculous. And I believe it, because they were going too fast, and the crewmen weren't up there. Like I said, people reported that the crewmen weren't up there. The captain wasn't there at first either. Like, there's reports of the captain missing in action, and that's where that comes in. Why wasn't he there? Why didn't he try more to do it, And maybe at the very end, towards the end, maybe he felt guilty. Maybe that guilt finally started to get to him. You know what I mean? Because I'm pretty sure, I don't remember. I don't know if he took his life or if he died. I can't remember. I know there was one of them that took their life after they got off the Titanic. And I thought the captain took his life, but maybe it was someone else that I'm thinking of. Was it the captain that took his life?
I can't remember myself, actually, to be honest.
There was a couple. Actually, there was a couple that actually committed suicide that had been on there, or committed suicide, but I think the captain was killed, if you want my honest opinion. I think that he was a loose end, and I feel like he was killed to be quiet, because he was one of the last things that could tie people to it,
Yeah.
And it even says here, the Federal Reserve started off as a secret plan, and then it was later introduced a year later, after the Titanic sunk, into the public. And it actually, the plan was for the group called the Illuminati banksters, with the plan to create a new world order operating outside of the constraints of the U.S. government. The privatized Federal Reserve controls the U.S. government's central banking system. It's through the Federal Reserve that the banksters would loan money, shape the world and landscape, and become one of the most powerful organizations in the world. And it goes on to say, in 1910, 7 men met on Jekyll Island, just off the coast of Georgia, to plan the Federal Reserve Bank. Nelson Aldrich and Frank Vanderclip represented the Rockefeller Illuminati financial empire. Henry Davidson, Charles Norton, and Benjamin Strong represented J.P. Morgan Illuminati as well. And then Paul Warburg represented the Rothschilds Illuminati banking dynasty of Europe. And see, that's the thing. The Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, they've always kind of, the actual leaders of that family have actually always been in the background. They've always made sure that they have people working for them, like the people I just listed. They always had those people that went out for them. They never actually went and did the meetings because the bounty on their heads was way too high for them to actually risk going out there. They needed to stay secret for them to be able to get as far as they did. So you had their little monkeys that they would send out to do the battle for them, because they were pussies. Like, that's just pretty much what it was.
Pretty much.
You know, and it also, you know, the Rothschilds were also banking agents for the jet suits and held the key to the wealth of the Roman Catholic Church. So again, here we come in with a church organization being used as a part of this Federal Reserve, and it being benefiting from it. And, you know, you got the pipe of the Vatican and all of that stuff, you know. And the thing that's funny is, or well, not funny, but, the Benjamin Guggenheim, Isidor Strass, and Isidor Strass was the head of the Macy's department stores. And I worked for Macy's. I actually worked for Macy's as a perfume girl. And then I read this, I'm like, oh my God, the guy on the Titanic that died, he was like at Macy's. Like, I got all excited. I'm like, yeah, that was one of my favorite places to work. It was so awesome. So they were all the wealthiest men, the values of their day was more than $500 million combined. Today that amount of money would be worth $11 billion. That is what they were worth. And these three men were coaxed and encouraged onto the board of the ship. They were brought onto this. They had to be destroyed because it would, they would use their wealth and influence to oppose the Federal Reserve Bank, as well as the various wars that were being planned. Wars, guys, wars being planned. That right there shows you that our government creates wars. They have wars and stuff that they do. And that's the thing. The UK and the United States are the same. The leaders are very, very similar, even though it's ruled differently. But what happens in the UK happens in the United States. Yeah. And I've noticed that, like 2 weeks after your guys' variation of the virus, like 2 weeks later, it showed up in the United States of America, just randomly in Georgia. Georgia was the first place that it just randomly popped up at, but back to the Titanic, J.P. Morgan was the individual contracted to build the Titanic, and he was supposed to be on there as well, and he canceled his trip last minute. And they said the Federal Reserve was installed as a part of the Federal Reserve Act in December of 1913. And the World War I was ignited less than a year later. A year later, after the Federal Reserve had been done. And you also have the above where it talked about they would stop wars. You can't tell me there's not a coincidence. World War I was not a coincidence. It was created. It was created by shadiness. And same with World War II. All of these wars that have broke out, it is because that is what the Federal Reserve has wanted. That's what they want. They want people fighting each other and stuff, and that's why you currently see the government causing people to be so against each other, because they want people blind and fighting amongst each other, and back then, with this Titanic stuff, they were also responsible for funding, the United States, Germany, and Russia in the war. So they actually funded the United States, Germany, and Russia in this war. So you have three big heavy hitters playing that are being paid off pretty much. Like they're being paid to be pit against each other at that, so there's a lot of things that it's amazing that one group of 7 men were able to create all of this history and all of this stuff that passed down through history. It's just crazy to think that. And this all started with the Titanic sinking. Who would think to put the Titanic sinking and that together back in that time period? Nobody would have done that. No one. So the person who found out and figured this theory out, they are brilliant for it because they are telling the truth. And I honestly think that their theory was actually a vision that was downloaded to them. I feel that they were psychic, and I feel like they had a vision that was downloaded to them. And then that's what ended up happening. Like that's how it panned out. It also goes on to say, some of the nagging questions, that have been there are, the surviving crew members of the Titanic were held for 24 hours after returning to England in a small railway shed and were sworn to secrecy. Why? Why were they sworn to secrecy? Also, why would a third of the boiler room quit their jobs before the maiden voyage during the middle of a coal strike and during a time when people needed jobs? Why would all those crew members just quit like that? Why? Yeah. Because they knew there was something more up with it. And the switching of the ships, you have the two sister ships were built at the same time. I call it Titan. It's the Olympic. Sorry, what the Titan was originally called. I don't know. I feel like the name Titan, I feel like that's what Titanic was going to originally be, but I think the Olympic was the Titan originally. Okay. I think it held that name, but I think it was changed because with the Olympic, like, I think it's awfully funny that the Olympic, it kind of, there's the Olympic sports, like the Olympics. You go do the Olympics. That's a really big thing in the world where people go, compete in the Olympics. You have a boat named the Olympic. Like, I believe it was originally Titan. I really do. But, hence Titanic. And so the Olympic had a bad track record in her younger days of running aground and colliding with HMS Hawk. After this collision, the Olympic was brought back into dry dock. And I'll use Olympic now so I don't confuse people. I'll use the Olympic, the name given by the articles. I'll use that name. But yeah, after the collision, the Olympic was brought back into the dry dock for repairs to be carried out. And this brought both the Titanic and the Olympic together for the last time. And that's when they believe that this happened. The Olympic was quite badly damaged, and it would cost a lot to repair it, and it would delay the launching of the Titanic by months. Okay, so months. And it wasn't a week, it was months. My bad, months. So what could they do? They needed a reliable ship and needed her for the 10th of April, 1912. With time running out, they decided it would be easier to do a botched job on the Olympic than and not concentrate on the Titanic until afterwards. So pretty much they said, screw this. And they were taking parts and switching shit out. Like, it was crazy what they were doing. Like, and the thing is they did this in the middle of a harbor in plain sight. Like, yeah. There was no secretness to this. And that's what blows my mind is like, they were doing this openly in the middle of the day, no secrecy. I mean, you can't really be secret in a harbor. A harbor is a pretty open place because you've got boats going in and out constantly. How they pulled this off in broad daylight with witnesses everywhere. It just shows you that's how busy people were back in that day, how worried they were about other things that they didn't see something like this going on in plain sight. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's where it shows. They create this panic for people. They create this, the strive for having to always work to make ends meet type of thing. They do that all because of that, and with days before, with the Titanic, with days go before sailing day, the Titanic was not ready, and the Olympic was still barely seaworthy. It was literally not seaworthy at all. And they're like, let's just go with it. you know, and it just, you don't do that when you've got damage to a hole like that. That's just, you don't even try to rush that. You know what I mean? You don't rush it, and this article where some of the facts are coming from, I do feel like they got some of the information a little bit misconstrued in how they wrote it down, because when I see the situation happen, I see it happening a bit different in my head, in my mind's eye, like a vision, than what it happened on the paper, on the black and white paper. So I do feel there is some variations. I feel like I'm psychically getting the variations in my head. As I see certain things that I've noticed are in the articles, and I'm like, why the hell am I having this in my head if it's not in the article? You know what I mean? So I had to think there's some kind of value, validity.
Your earphone, your mic's gone again. It's gone really tinny.
Why does it do this? Oh, that's why. I got a message from Discord, like the Discord notification popped up. Okay, hold on. Did it work now?
Speak a little bit more.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. It's still very tinny.
Oh no! Dang it!
Don't worry. We're wrapping up now anyway. So.
Okay, good. And we can finish the rest of that the next time, because like I said, there's still so much more to it, and I knew we were only going to get to some of it in the show because there's just so much to it, and the next time, like, there's so many more deeper details, like it goes really deep, guys, and I can't wait till y'all get to see the information. I'm excited, and I'm hoping in that time I will have some more psychic visions come in that might be able to make this picture a little bit more clear.
Awesome.
So
Cool.
maybe that was the universe's way of saying stop right there so we don't give too much away.
Well, yeah, possibly. Right. Okay. So, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed that. Yeah, we're on YouTube, so you're seeing this on YouTube. We'll try. Well, I don't know what's happening with Facebook. I'll see if I'm properly shadow banned. There is. I've been trying to sort it out while talking. You've been talking. There is a new platform coming. It won't actually be ready officially until March. We're beta testing now, so if you're interested in trying a new, more divine feminine, the actual main creator, one of the main creators of it, there's a male and a female, and the female's very divine feminine, very much about our heart-centered consciousness, and so it's going to be very more divine feminine, very more conscious created website. In actual fact, the way they're creating it, rather than having stars and your followers, it's actually about smaller knit communities. It still could be thousands of people, but the whole idea is to actually, it's personal connection, so actually talking to people. And Vibio, as it's called, Vibio app, is actually vibe on video. So it's actually a little bit like TikTok in that sense, where videos, but you can actually respond to people on video. So you see the video, and it goes up to a minute long. It's starting off at 30 seconds, but it will be coming up to you can do a 30-second one or a minute one, and the minute long, somebody does a video, and you can then respond to it with another video. So you actually comment. Instead of just typing, you can actually comment with a video and actually talk to that person. A bit like on WhatsApp or on Messenger, where I use this all the time. Do audios between each other. You can actually do this via video. So that's coming up. If you're interested in being a beta tester for this, contact me, and I will contact me or Brittnee if you know either one of us, and we will pass you the details. Otherwise, look out for it in.
That's my weirdness coming through. Sorry.
That's right. Look out for it in March. Yeah, we're coming out in March, April.
Yes, guys. It is an awesome app, and you will love it. I know you will. It's really good, and it's also going to be challenging because your videos, 30 seconds. You thought it was fast with TikTok, 60 seconds. 30 seconds, you're going to challenge yourself. I've challenged myself a few times. I'm like, yeah. So I love it. It makes me go fast.
Well, they've started with 30 seconds. They will have the option of the minute. But yeah, I thought you might be excited on that one. But she wanted it to be, rather than, you know, and that's why there's very little filters and no special effects. Again, eventually they'll be added too. But right at first, she wanted it to be more about heartfelt, about actual honest conversation. And you actually got people, you know, like women who just not bothering to make up and speaking their heart, which I think is a really powerful thing. So, you know, that's the beginning of it, is that, but eventually, yes, it will have it will have other techniques as well. But one of the biggest things, it's video on video reply, which doesn't exist anywhere else. That the lives, the actual lives, will have up to 8 people, which is like a Zoom. It'll be like a Zoom call. You can actually have 8 people, but then you can actually, and the whole thing of instead of hashtags, they have heart vibes. So when you like something, you say you can actually like it for a particular reason. So you create like a hashtag. But everyone you create, so one video, so people could say sea view buggy, people could say dragon, they could say, oh, they like the flag. So there's different. So that video would be in different categories for different reasons. But those categories, sort of like Facebook, become a group. So you'll see all the videos they put into that category, you would see in that group. So you sort of become a member of that group, as well as becoming individual members of actual profiles. So your friends are your tribe, but you also the hashtag, you could be on a heart tag that could have a whole totally different set of people to your normal tribe. So like if you're into ice skating, like me, snowboarding, like me, tai chi, like me, healing, like me, but also lightsabers, you know, they're quite different, but you could have those different variations all interacted.
Ooh, my hashtag's gonna be killing it. Hashtag killing it.
Just put that on every single video. But yeah, so that's the whole. But people can actually choose. It's not just you choosing the hashtag. When they watch your video, they get to choose the hashtag. So like, because they could like see your tat and say, oh, tattoo, and then you would be in a tattoo one as well. So the whole idea is that not only do you say what you want to base it on, but people will actually watch it and because I've watched on video at the moment, I've watched different videos and I've put totally things that people wouldn't necessarily like, it's like this, that, or the other, or just like, they're talking, it starts with music vibe, or it's this vibe, or it's that vibe, or honesty, or integrity. And so, so it creates a lot of different interesting hashtags.
An app like Vimeo, I might honestly do some sound healing on there with my voice. I've never wanted to do it on Facebook just because I don't like dealing with the ignorant assholes that are on there, the ones stuck in their ego.
And this is the other thing.
Yeah, I feel like this app, I would be willing to do that type of stuff, the sound healing.
Well, because you only see what you like. So the things that you actually hashtag you like are the only things you actually get to see. So rather than YouTube or Instagram to a degree, or TikTok especially, where random stuff can come up, but that means you can get random haters come and hate your stuff, and they're totally anonymous because they can have some random picture. Not even on TikTok, I've seen ones give me a load of abuse. They got a picture of peanut butter or banana, and they've got no videos whatsoever. They're anonymous. They're out their way.
It's definitely a troll account, definitely.
Yeah. Vimeo, you can't be a troll. It's very freaking hard to be a troll because
you can't be shady on this app.
well, unless you're shady by still being visually seen and you're purposely being a troll. That's the only way.
Right, yeah.
You can't hide. That's the point, because You can do you can comment, but the actual video, you know, it's the main thing will be video, and video will be
I'm
commenting.
excited. I can't wait.
And for, I mean, I'm really looking forward to telling this to cosplayers, because cosplayers can do interactive.
Yes.
They can do whole scenes because of this fact that you can.
Yes, and the cosplay community are actually really awesome community to have, because a lot of the cosplayers are very nice. They're very kind. They're very high vibe. You know, most of them are people that have, you know, been made in fun of or called nerds and stuff, and they found that power in that cosplay. So I do think cosplay is a very cool thing. And one thing that I want to bring to this app too is I want to bring like little stories about my ghost adventures when I go on ghost hunts and stuff like that too. Like I've got a whole slew of stuff that I'm going to put on there, so I'm excited.
Yeah,
super happy.
Okay, so guys, I hope you enjoyed that show. That's my little rant about the future of social networking, and we hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back next month. I think
I haven't said anything yet. I need to.
Yeah. No worries. And so guys, take care for now. We love you loads. Until next time, it's goodbye for the wonderful Brittnee.
Bye. Bye.
And it's goodbye for me, Sophie Boggy. So guys, take care. Until next time, it's Brittnee and Boggy out.